Hey, thank you for joining us for an episode of the Medicine Mentors, where we interview leading physicians on the best tips, lessons, and pathways to mastery for aspiring physicians. Our mission is to learn from top mentors the most effective paths to mastery and fulfillment in medicine and to spread their knowledge. Today's guest is Dr. Rowan Chlebowski, who is one of the most influential breast cancer researchers in the world. Dr. Chlebowski is a clinical breast oncologist with a Ph.D. in reproductive biology. He has a credentialed clinical and research interest in breast cancer therapy and prevention, menopausal hormone therapy influences on cancer and chronic disease, and lifestyle influences on breast cancer incidence and outcome. He's best known for studying breast cancer issues in the Women's Health Initiative, WHI. He's published widely and led reports in well-cited journals such as JAMA, NEJM, Lancet Oncology, JCO, Journal of the NCI, and JAMA Oncology. On this episode, he tells us how to become a high-impact researcher. He emphasizes the product, guiding us to the proper focus for achieving research excellence. Dr. Chlebowski also shares his advice for finding an appropriate mentor, choosing the right focus for research, and working with diligence. We hope you enjoy this time with him as much as we did.
So, Dr. Chlebowski, regarding, so you yourself as a physician are a physician leader, what advice would you have for a young physician like me who is aspiring to become a physician leader, or other young physicians? If you could tell us about yourself.
Yeah, there's a few things, I think. I think almost everybody who's at a certain level at one time decided to spend more time to learn more things. So I did a Ph.D., so that was another 2 years, and that set me up for many things. And then when I was at USC, it was the Western Cancer Study Group was being defunded, and I saw an opportunity there as a third-year fellow to take over the Western Cancer Study Group. And so I was able to take the residence pay just to do that. And so I think most people, you find, would spend a couple years doing something so you get to you have an edge over other people, especially if you don't have an advanced degree, because that's really hard to start at the bottom. I think the other thing is recognize that the whole business is all product oriented. So I think a lot of people have difficulty in seeing how important a product is. And the product is very important because the more times you see new data, the more you'll be ahead of many other people. I think the other part of it is it's really tough now. Team science is how do you get credit for things like I will be talking about a trial with 48,835 women with 40 clinical centers and and a major presence. There's clinical center at Fred Hutch, and then how do I get to report it? So with the team science approach, then it seems like it's almost that you have to select something a little bit off center. So you can't say I'm going to replace the most prominent kind of breast clinical investigator for trastuzumab. That position's already taken, right? So you need something a little bit off as well. So I think those are the start. And I remember with Elizabeth Blackburn, who was a Nobel Prize for telomeres, and she was president of AACR, and they had an AACR ASCO conference like they have now here in the two chairs. And I was giving one of the talks, and then she talked to junior people afterwards how to be famous and get a Nobel Prize like I did, right? That. And I told her afterwards it was good, but you didn't tell them also that they had to be lucky, and that's the other part of it, because things break certain ways. But I think those are probably the major things. I think a lot of times junior people have a tough time getting started. They're writing a paper, they'll write 40, citation introduction. But that if what they're doing doesn't work, then that is just like a high school paper that's not going to have any value. So you really need to get to the product first, and those are the citations, because the whole business, fortunately and unfortunately, is product, impact, money. That's the whole business. So teaching is a sidebar, but it actually is not in that triangle. It's not in that triangle for people presenting at these meetings or publishing in JAMA, New England Journal, or Lancet. So that's important each in its own way, but it's different than that important.
You must have had so many challenges in reaching where you are. Mm-hmm. And especially while choosing the field of research. Yeah. So how did you overcome these challenges?
Yeah, I think the challenge is I look at it the other way. I look at these opportunities that just came up that I was able to do something with. And sometimes luck is involved in those things as well. So when the tamoxifen prevention trial came out, It did turn out not to be a big deal, but it was felt to be a big deal at that time. It was just an abstract. We didn't publish at the same time like we're doing commonly now. ASCO wanted, Board of Directors of ASCO wanted the Health Services Research Committee to do a technology assessment guideline. And we had a meeting at that same ASCO meeting. Because I was doing WHI stuff, I could talk a little bit about it. So I said, okay, Chlebowski, are you going to do it? And I said, yes. And then that had, at the next ASCO, when we presented that, it had 200 people press conference, the biggest impact of anything at ASCO that year. Then New England Journal asked ASCO to name 3 people to do a review article. And they chose me, and that came out, New England Journal, and then the breast cancer results came out about a year and a half later in the Women's Health Initiative. So that could put me up to the top of the list to report on the breast cancer findings. But those are taking opportunities of things. I had to do the conversation, I had to do the technology assessment, and produce the New England Journal review article, and then I think the other thing is, as a young person, you can impress the senior leadership as well, because then what happened is they could see that Fred Hutch and some of the other people at NIH could see that I could deliver stuff. And though we had so many people, sometimes you give people real good results and they just can't do it. They just can't focus enough. They can't make statements and direct statements, because that's what they want. They want declarative statements in the New England Journal and JAMA. And so then I got recognized as somebody that I could be entrusted to do something, as opposed to giving something and then 3 months later have nothing to show for it.
You were saying that you took the opportunities.
Yeah.
And is there was there a turning point?
Yeah, I don't know, because because where we grew up, there were no role models for being a successful anything except doctors and maybe lawyers. So we didn't see many lawyers, And so everybody was working class in the neighborhood. So it was almost like I couldn't think of anything else to do. But in figuring out the research business, I think the doing the Ph.D. when I thought I wasn't going to do medicine, and then changed my mind, really was a big help. And I don't know if I would have done it the other way, that I would have been willing to take that time off. But I think those things really kind of set me up. And then I said, I have this unique. I look like to myself. I said, I have the unique data that apparently a lot of these other breast oncologists I talk to don't know about. And so I said, I have something to offer. So I think that gave me confidence, even while because I was selected for these cooperative group things when I was a young person, because I had this experience with this metabolism stuff.
There are those students that have had years of research, and then they're worried that, there is this too much time, that has too much time elapsed. But I mean, based on what you were saying, you're saying that is a advantage.
Yeah, and I think the other part of it is, it isn't just time, it's product. So you have to be willing to cut your losses, which some people get started on something, and then it's slowly developing, and then you take X period of time, and you don't have product, and then you're done. So you really have to recognize something that is going to give you a product. I was just talking to a first-year fellow that she wants to continue to mentor with me, because she interviewed for a fellowship position at City Hope. And I told her that you really have to focus on a product, right? And so you have to recognize quickly if you're going to get a product or not. If you're talking to a mentor, you got to get a feel for a project that will give you a product no matter what happens. And so recognizing that that's the currency. I mean, we have these scoreboards now that we didn't have before. So you got H-score, which is number of papers cited the same number of times.
I see.
So if you had 100 papers, but one was only cited 3 times the maximum, then your impact score would be 3 instead of 100. And so I have an impact score of H-score of 95. So 95 articles discovered 95 times, which would be about twice as many as a New England Journal, and maybe 3 times JAMA or Lancet publication. So even if they didn't get in those papers, which I have a number of them, that means that the reviewer's wrong, because they turned down stuff that was better than the stuff they were taking. So we have these objective scoreboards that we didn't have 10 years ago, and so what's the scoreboard? I mean, it's all impact. It's all impact, and they tweak it a number of ways, but basically people have to recognize how the scoring system goes, and you have to be in a situation where product is coming out, I get nervous when I don't see something that's going to be impactful coming out. Now that hasn't happened in a little while, but I think that would be the challenge. I think there was one time where it seemed like, while we're waiting for the Women's Health Initiative to come in, it seemed like some of the things weren't quite as impactful, and I said, well, this isn't going to do it, but then the results came out. And I could see in retrospect that probably I could even focus a little bit more earlier on doing some other thing while the study's brewing. We had with a couple of senior investigators, world-class breast cancer investigators at Royal Marsden Hospital. We're out for dinner with the two of them and our accomplished wives, all three of us. And we would this kind of a little close environment. We all have single article, New England Journal, some aspect of review of breast cancer, which is nice. And what we decided in the course of the evening, we decided that we were working harder than people who are aspiring. And the people who are aspiring, which I think is probably right in retrospect, they think once their thing comes in, they'll be set. But actually the half-life used to be 18 months. It's probably less than that now. Because after 18 months they'll say, what?
Especially in an era of technology.
Yeah. So it's getting even shorter, shorter.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people just don't realize that you have to be trying to, even if you got this thing cooking, you have to get other things going.
So focusing on, what would be your advice for someone starting out in the field of research regarding this? What would be your single most important piece of advice regarding that?
Yeah, I think the idea is recognizing that product is the whole story, and as you're looking at your choices you're making, you have to see how will these choices influence my ability to generate product both over the short term and intermediate term. And as opposed to getting one concept that you're following, which may or may not turn out. Yeah, so I think you'll find that lots of people who are successful are doing lots of things. And I mean, the saying is, and the other saying is, of course, nobody's changed the world working 40 hours a week. And I think that's correct. And I think the other part of it is, then you have to say, do you want to do that? Are you in a social or whatever mental situation that you can do that? And so my administrative assistant comes in on Sunday, and so we do 8 or 10 hours on Sunday, right? So that's kind of like, but that's what I have to do to keep all these things going. I think other people make different choices, but I bet you find not too many of these people are working 40 hours a week. So I think that's the other thing. I think I've been thinking about that ever since I talked to you, and I think those are pretty good principles.
Thank you for joining us for this episode with Dr. Chlebowski. We are so fortunate to have a world-class researcher like him share his knowledge with us. For physicians choosing careers in research, Dr. Chlebowski is an indispensable resource. We hope that his words resonated with you and that you can find the inspiration to produce some great products. Please subscribe to stay updated on our newest episodes featuring the insights of top physicians, and please do comment about your experiences to keep the conversation going. Thank you for joining us for this opportunity to learn from the Masters of Medicine.